Our News from the Hill segment tonight, former ExxonMobil CEO Rex Tillerson sat before Congress this morning at his confirmation hearing for Secretary of State of the United States. The largest accusation that's been levied against him is his ties to Russia. Vladimir Putin once bestowed upon him the Order of Friendship. Now, is this a liability since Russia is a threat, or is that an asset since Tillerson has successfully negotiated with Russia before? Those questions and more took front and center at the hearing today. Take a look.
We must also be clear-eyed about our relationship with Russia. Russia today poses a danger, but it is not unpredictable in advancing its own interest. It has invaded the Ukraine, including the taking of Crimea, and supported Syrian forces that brutally violates the laws of war. Our NATO allies are right to be alarmed at a resurgent Russia. But it was in the absence of American leadership that this door was left open and unintended signals were sent. Words alone do not sweep away an uneven and at times contentious history between our two nations. But we need an open and frank dialogue with Russia regarding its ambitions so we know how to chart our own course.
Joining me now, the Thomas L. Rhodes Fellow at the National Review, Ian Tuttle. Ian, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Ian, this hearing was quite contentious at times. What's your quick reaction on it?
My quick reaction is that the Republican hawks who needed reassuring probably didn't get it. That's Marco Rubio, Lindsey Graham, John McCain, folks who are worried that Donald Trump and his administration are going to take a far too conciliatory tone toward Russia, and also that Tillerson's business history with Iran raises serious questions.
Right, because, I mean, one of the things I was frankly very surprised about this, Ian, when Tillerson said that he had not spoken with President-elect Trump about Russian policy, that they talked about worldview, they talked about yes and no, what they agreed on in general, very vague almost, but they hadn't talked specifically about Russian policy. That really surprised me.
Yeah, it's kind of astonishing, and you could tell that some of the senators in the room were taken aback as well. And it suggests that there may be a little more behind-the-scenes chaos in this transition as far as sort of figuring out where the administration is going to be across the board. There's a little more chaos than we might be seeing looking in from the outside.
Right, and already today, just in the first couple hours, we identified a conflicting opinion between Trump and Rex Tillerson. When Tillerson condemned Russia's actions in Ukraine, he said they were illegal, that they violated the rules of war, and Donald Trump has not said that.
That's right, and of course you had the spectacle of Tillerson testifying about as to his opinions about Russia on the Hill, while Donald Trump was opining on Russia during his press conference. And, you know, their positions both sort of converged and diverged at certain points. So you really have to wonder if they're on the same page.
Right, although to be fair, that did happen also right after Mike Pence was chosen as vice presidential nominee. That he said some things in the vice presidential debate that Trump said he did not agree on, and they look like they're working together just fine. Ian, let me ask you about a couple of other things that came up in this hearing today. First of all, Tillerson was asked about his dealings with Iran when there were sanctions against Iran in place. I think a lot of senators, and even myself outside of government, found his answer to be a bit vague.
Yeah, absolutely. You could tell that he really didn't want to come down in a position on whether it's acceptable for a corporation to be dealing with a state sponsor of terrorism. He focused on the fact that it wasn't technically illegal. That's because they used a European subsidiary, which wasn't under U.S. sanctions. But of course, the European subsidiary that they used was 50% owned by Exxon at the time. So while there was probably nothing illegal actually going on, it does raise serious questions about whether, about sort of the moral compass question, I suppose.
Right. It's a slippery little loophole. And I guess in a sense, it's good to know that there wasn't something technically illegal that happened. But it's a question of morals, to me, of ethics. Is that something we want to do as a nation? Even private businesses deal with a nation like Iran that has such egregious human rights abuses against women, against gays, against minorities, anyone who isn't Muslim. It's absolutely terrible. And I think he could have addressed that a bit better. Ian, he also spoke about climate change. He said it needed to be addressed.
That's right. And I think he was trying to stake out some sort of balanced position on this. You know, he did say late during the testimony he didn't think it was at all the imminent threat that, that many on the left do believe. I think he was, as the head of Exxon, he has no lack of strong opinions about climate change science, I'm sure. But I imagine he was trying to stake out what he thought was a a fairly conciliatory approach to an issue that ultimately I think the president is going to handle himself simply by mainly withdrawing from the question.
Right, and I think that was perhaps not the right choice for Tillerson, especially given just last night President Obama essentially reiterated his opinion that it was the greatest threat that we're facing and that if we don't address it now, our children won't even be able to talk about it because they'll be, or debate about it or whatever he said, because they'll be the ones that are dealing with it. Ian, I guess just to get a little more theoretical here, what does he need to be asked? What should Rex Tillerson be asked so that we, the people, know whether he's suitable for this position?
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, there were a lot of good questions there today. They really did manage to address a whole lot of issues. I think the problem is that you saw, or at least it seemed to me, there was just both a general lack of maybe preparation. I'm not sure exactly what it was, and also just that general vagueness that went, I think, a little bit beyond what you would expect from a confirmation hearing. Obviously, you don't want nominees to be making up policy on the fly just to please senators, but there did seem to be a sense of nebulous quality to Tillerson's answers that I think for the key Republicans didn't give them the sort of internal reassurance that they really need to back this man and know that he's going to be both a good diplomat and someone who's an independent counterbalance to Donald Trump.
Right, and I guess I personally find it a little hard to believe that these vague answers were because he doesn't know the answers to these questions, because given his position at ExxonMobil, the CEO, given his positions, his ties to our government and foreign governments and all the negotiation that he's done, he knows the answers to these questions, and it just makes me a little skeptical why he wouldn't answer them directly. Ian, last question, is he going to pass?
It's likely. Marco Rubio today, who holds one of the key votes, said that he was discouraged, but says that he won't vote differently in committee and on the floor. That being the case, it's likely to be a yes, and that would probably pass him through, but I think it might be close.
Right, and I guess we'll have to wait and see. Ian, thanks so much for the rundown. I appreciate it.